Barry Jennings was the deputy head of emergency management there for New York City. He went into Building 7. There were steaming coffee sandwiches. They were told, get out of the building with a phone call. They get out. There's explosions that have gone off. He's stepping over dead bodies. And this is before either North or South Tower, the 110-story towers, had fallen. So he had told some local news that, on record that day.
We started walking down the stairs. We made it to the 8th floor. Big explosion. Blew us back into the 8th floor. And I turned to Hesh. I said, this is it. We're dead. We're not going to make it out of here. I took a fire extinguisher and I bust the window out. That's when this gentleman here heard my cries for help.
So Jason Burmis and Dylan Avery and Corey Rove, they go out a year ago for Loose Change Final Cut. They interview him.
Hi, my name is Barry Jennings. I'm 52 years old. I've worked for 33 years at one location. When the Office of Emergency Management did an activation, they always included our locale. And what they did was monitor the emergency. They actually coordinated the emergency through several agencies. I received the call shortly after the first plane hit. I got there, I had to be inside on the 23rd floor when the second plane hit. Upon arriving into the OEM EOC, we noticed that everybody was gone. I saw coffee that was on the desk. Still, the smoke was still coming off the coffee. I saw half-eaten sandwiches. And only me, Mr. Hess, was up there. After I called several individuals, one individual told me that to leave and leave right away. Mr. Hess came running back in and said, we're the only ones up here, we got to get out of here. He found the stairwell. So we subsequently went to the stairwell and we're going down the stairs. When we reached the 6th floor, the landing that we were standing on gave way. There was an explosion and the landing gave way. And I was left there hanging. I had to climb back up and now I had to walk back up to the 8th floor. When I made it to the 6th floor and there was an explosion, the explosion was beneath me. Keep in mind now, it's pitch black in there. All the lights went out. So when the explosion happened, it blew us back. I'm thinking I'm standing on the landing. I'm actually holding on to a pole above us.
Really?
And I had to climb back up because Hess is yelling, what do we do now? I said, there's only one thing we can do, and it's go back up. Both buildings were still standing. Keep in mind, I told you the fire department came and ran. They came twice. Why? Because building Tower 1 fell, then Tower 2 fell. And then when they came back with all concern now, like to get me the hell out of there. I was trapped in there for several hours. I was trapped in there when both buildings came down. All this time, I'm hearing all types of explosions. All this time, I'm hearing explosions. When they finally got to us, and they took us down to what they called the lobby, because I asked them, I said, when we got down there, I said, where are we? He said, this was the lobby. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. It was total ruins. Total ruins. Now keep in mind, when I came in there, the lobby had nice escalators. It was a huge lobby. And for me to see what I saw, it was unbelievable. And the firefighter that took us down kept saying, do not look down. And I kept saying why. He said, do not look down. And we were stepping over people. And you know you can feel when you're stepping over people. This big giant police officer came to me. And he says, you have to run. I said, I can't run, my knees are swollen. He said, you're gonna have to get on your knees and crawl in. He said, because we have reports of more explosions. And that's when I started crawling. And I saw this guy fall behind me, and his comrades came to his aid. They dragged him to safety. I'm just confused about one thing, and one thing only. Why World Trade Center 7 went down in the first place. I'm very confused about that. I know what I heard. I heard explosions. The explanation I got was, it was the fuel oil tank. I'm an old boiler guy. If it was a fuel oil tank, it would have been one side of the building. Yes, you can use this footage.
Now, suddenly he gets threats. They threaten to fire him. All this stuff happens. And so even though he agrees that we can use it, and we have that contractually, him agreeing to use it, and would be important for the movement, important to get it out. We didn't put it out. I was one of the executive producers on Loose Change Final Cut. Then the BBC backtracks who it is, this Guy Smith guy who came and interviewed me and did this hit piece, a previous hit piece on 9/11, and I'd say, what about Northwoods? What about U.S. troops massing to invade Afghanistan the weeks before? What about all the, and he would, no, that's not going in the piece. Total hit piece. Then at the end of it, he said it was fair and balanced. At the end, he just laughed at me and told me I was a nut, and it was a big joke. I mean, totally disingenuous. Then about a month ago, I was on BBC Radio debating him, and he said he was involved in this new Building 7 piece that's coming out, and they interviewed Barry Jennings for it, and we've seen the trailer. Basically, they edit craftily, and Jennings had been pressured. He said, well, it looked like bodies. I thought it was bodies. It might not have been bodies. I meant the stuff on the floor was like bodies. Key witness to WTC 7 explosions, dead at age 53.
Ira hates.
Emergency coordinator and 9/11 witness Barry Jennings has passed away, with controversy about WTC 7 still hot, as the BBC hit piece and NIST report have been released to counter Jennings' exclusive testimony on explosions inside Building 7. Now, we interviewed him for Loose Change Final Cut. He then, word got out about it. He begged us, saying he'd been threatened, saying his pension had been threatened, his job had been threatened, and other threats. Wouldn't specify what those were if he didn't shut up. Then he didn't really recant. He said, yeah, there were explosions, yeah, before the towers fell in Building 7. And he said, well, it could have been bodies. But earlier he said they were bodies on the ground. Then his boss just came out in the last few weeks and was interviewed by the BBC, saying, I never saw explosions, though he had said that on news that day along with Mr. Jennings. Very suspicious that he's dead at 53. Let me just read over this article for everybody and then make some added points on it. Emergency coordinator 9/11 witness Barry Jennings has passed away, with controversy about WTC 7 still hot, as the BBC hit piece and NIST report have been released to counter Jennings' exclusive testimony of explosions inside Building 7. Now that's, we could say exclusive, but really his boss talked about explosions. Firefighters and police talked about it. EMTs talked about it. There's cops on CNN saying, get back, they're going to blow it up, it's going to come down. And the owners said they blew it up. So problem is, see, he's credible because he was the deputy emergency manager of that area. So that's why they had to get rid of him. And I have no doubt they killed him. And there's 95% chance, especially now they're being very secretive. See, people say, well, why 7 years later was he killed? This was all coming out. There was talk of subpoenaing him, that they're about to probably get enough signatures to have it on the ballot for a New York investigation of 9/11. Talk of calling him before a grand jury. The interview was not fully released until 2008 at the request of Mr. Jennings, who had received numerous threats to his job and asked that it be left out of Loose Change Final Cut because of those threats. He'd still be alive, folks. I'm almost 95% sure that it was a murder, especially now how they won't say what caused it. Barry Jennings is dead, and he died a month ago. He's dead. Okay? Don't let Barry Jennings die in vain. Don't let all the other people that have died in vain and been murdered over this. I mean, they did this, folks. And this is a big deal. So they had to kill Jennings. And he was 53. He could have had a heart attack, maybe 5% chance. And right around the NIST report coming out, we know that the BBC was trying to interview him again. We know that his boss was now contradicting him. But conveniently, he is now gone. No one has any details. No one knows anything. His family's being closed-lipped. His bosses and others are being closed-lipped. His employees and people that were under him are being closed-lipped. I mean, we have a right to know. This is the fact that it's being covered up, that is so suspicious. And when this happened is so key. Really a lot of evidence. I mean, this whole thing stinks to high heaven. And we have 3,000 people that were murdered. And I assure you, if we could talk to them right now, every one of them would say, absolutely, find out who did this. And the majority of the victims' families have said on record, and the heads of the biggest groups have said, the most of us believe it's an inside job, and that was years ago. We got polls years ago where 84% believe the government's lying, 57% believe total inside job. And, you know, that's the majority of the polls. They got a few cooked ones where only half believe they're being lied to. You know, we're the majority, and that's what 9/11 Truth did. We went, and it was the first time a major hoax was exposed in a matter of months instead of a matter of 20, 30 years like JFK. And we taught people how to culture jam, how to take over live media events, how to be active, how to break people out of their trance watching TV, to take over events. I mean, it's just revolutionary. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. And you know what? You dirty, low-down feds, we're not going to stop, and you can't stop us. And I know you've committed crimes, and you rationalize the crimes you've committed, and you think it's a cute thing you've done, a funny thing you've done, but you can smell defeat, can't you? I smell victory.